Hi, I am Brent Feldman, and I am back with another episode of Mix and Matchbox. Today we have Noah Besheer, who's the president of Gunter, Pest, and Lawn. Hi, how are you doing, Noah? Good to see you.
Brent, I'm doing great. Yeah,
That's great.
good to see you.
Well, definitely, and thanks so much for being on the podcast. Looking forward to jumping in all the questions and stuff.
Yeah, me too.
Cool. Well, right off the bat, I know that you're now the current president at Gunter Pest and Lawn, but you took a winding path through sort of marketing to kind of get where you are now. And as this is a family business, what would you say are the things that you had to learn to kind of gear you up for the transition in your current position?
Sure. So, yeah, it has been an interesting transition. When I was in college, I always thought I wanted to do marketing and more specifically copywriting, whether it was kind of a sports writer for a newspaper, copywriter at an ad agency, something like that. And as I got out of school, it was kind of a rough time in the job market. And I couldn't get a job at an ad agency like I wanted to. I had some good internships, but just agencies at that time were laying people off. They weren't really hiring. So it was a tough go around. But what was actually exploding at that time was social media. So it was the very, very beginning of social media for companies. And so they need, there were companies looking for people that could figure out and navigate through the landscape and figure out like how should our business show up in these places like Facebook and like Twitter and YouTube and places like that. And so that's kind of how I got started, and worked for a handful of bigger companies, including Four Seasons and Famous Footwear. Worked at a local ad agency in St. Louis. And all those jobs were great and taught me a lot of skills that I do use today. But what I learned, honestly, was that corporate life was not kind of the career path that I wanted to stay on for the rest of my career. And it was kind of an interesting transition in that my dad and my grandpa, who had been running Gunter for 30 or 40 years, both are kind of at the end of their careers, and they kind of approached me and asked would I want to get involved. And it was kind of at the same time that I was getting a little bit burnt out on the corporate path. And so we talked a lot about it and kind of talked through all the details. And so that's kind of how that transition happened. And I'm happy about it. I've been at Gunner about 2.5 years so far.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I guess, transparently, like, yeah, we do work with you guys, and it's been neat, working with multiple members of your family, which is really cool. And it's definitely, I actually didn't I didn't know this side about them, kind of like, just having that conversation with you and being at a job and kind of, bringing you into the family business in that way. And that is really cool. I How have you personally kind of seen the company change during, not only like your time there, but also your lifetime? Because essentially for as long as you've been around, Gunter has kind of been around.
Yeah. Yeah. My earliest memories, honestly, it's been around my whole life. So, I have memories back to when I was a little kid, and my sister and I on the weekends, my dad would go in on Saturday mornings, pretty much every Saturday morning, unless there was a conflict or we were out of town or something. And there was a Burger King next door. So he would give us $5 to go get some food. And then we would go in the basement of the office and play while he kind of answered calls or, created routes. And I would say, the biggest change that's happened over that time frame is with technology. You could say the same about probably most businesses, but the reality is a lot of the work and a lot of the time and effort that was spent when I was a kid, in the 90s, let's say, now is pretty much automated. So I remember, my dad, my grandpa, people in the office would kind of manually map out the routes for the next day and figure out, take all the calls and, write them in by paper, and all the files were by paper. All the payments were by paper. All the payment that we got from customers was cash or it was checks. So a lot of those things have just transitioned digitally, which has saved a lot of time, and a lot of energy. And so, that is probably the thing that has changed the most about the company. the core values of the company are always what they've been. It's always been important for us to be a great place to work for our team, to treat our customers with a lot of respect, to offer really good value for the service that we provide. But in terms of what's different now, I would just say it is technologically in a much different space than it was 20 or 30 years ago.
That's cool. But yeah, the same sort of integrity and values and stuff still remain. That's really neat. And it's a testament to the longevity too. Um, you mentioned mapping out routes, and I remember those giant street guides that they used to have and the multiple
Mhm.
pages. And yeah, I'm sure there was probably plenty of that.
Yeah. So on the route sheet, it would list the place for the appointment, the address, and then it would literally list the directions, like go to 95th Street, turn right, then go east on this street. It'd be like a map quest on every single, appointment. And you just have to hope the directions are correct and nothing's changed, or no streets have been, because there was no phones to check. Oh, actually, this is blocked. Now what do I do? So it was almost like being a pirate. You just kind of took the map and tried to figure it out to get there.
That's awesome. Yeah, I was thinking of that. I was like, oh my God, what do? Do you like get to a gas station, call up the office, and just
Yeah.
like, yeah.
They had pagers. Yeah. So there was no phone. So, yes, they would do, like, if there was a change to their schedule, there would be a little thing on their pager. Then they would call the office and be like, hey, what's changed?
Yeah, as we all, sometimes, regret how much, we have to rely on technology. There's also some really good things that at least we have it in those kind of situations now.
Yes. Agreed.
Cool. Well, what about, sort of personal lessons that you've learned in leadership while making this sort of, transition and taking over a position held by, generational members of your family? Obviously, this was something where, working within a marketing company and a giant organization to then being, sort of the leader. What are some of those things that you've kind of learned in your position?
Yeah, so that's maybe one of the areas that I felt most prepared coming into the company. In terms of the actual work in the industry, I'm not the expert by any means, but I do feel like it was very well prepared from a leadership standpoint based on my past jobs. And so, my last couple, I had the chance to be kind of a leader of a team. So honestly, had experience doing that, but also had the chance to have some really good bosses that really taught you kind of what's important as a leader. And then, had some maybe that weren't quite as good. And then you kind of can see the difference of what you don't like and things that you kind of want to refrain from with your own team. And so, had the chance to work for Four Seasons, and they are known for excellent customer service. And it starts with the leadership, honestly. Is like, if there's a wrapper on the ground, if there's any issue that pops up, like, the leaders are the first people to kind of solve it, and then just treat the team with so much respect. But in terms of the leadership coming into the company, I had to earn it, because honestly, I'm one of the younger people at the company, probably one of the least experienced people in terms of our actual business. So I had to earn that, and a lot of it comes down to communication. And so that's something that is very important to me, to making sure, having a lot of transparency with our team about our goals, about what's important, about what we expect, things like that. And then also the organization and the structure, of getting everyone on the same page about, where they fit in with the company, where we're going, and kind of, what is their role. So those, honestly, and then a lot of the things that you just think of when it comes to good leadership, which is, just treating people like you want to be treated, making people feel appreciated. If there's an issue that pops up, give that feedback as quickly and as empathetically as you can.
That's great. Um, what do you think are some of the most valuable tactics translated from the marketing world, now to your current role? Are
Mm-hmm.
there things that you feel like that, definitely the experience within social media in general, but are there things you're like, oh man, that really paid off?
Sure. Yeah. So marketing to me is all about communication with your customers, right? And even with your team internally. But in terms of when it comes to outward marketing, We were in great hands with the Matchbox design team whenever I started, from an SEO standpoint, from a Google AdWords standpoint. And we had a really good base there, to be honest. But when it came to other tactics that have helped, we really revamped our email marketing strategy when it comes to like our email blasts internally, and thinking about what is unique about us as a company. There are a lot of things, but it's very easy to blend in when there's so many different companies out there. So really focusing on what makes us different, what sets us apart, that we should hone in on, and eliminate a lot of the other things. So, for our company, that is our tradition, and it's our experience, and it's the fact that we try to do things a little bit in a way that's better for the environment, right? So those are the main things that we focus on in our emails. And then also my background's in social media. So that was another thing that look and feel wise, and also communication wise, that we tried to amp up, and also using the platforms and their ad networks on Facebook, on YouTube, on Instagram, on Nextdoor, to really, because honestly, I feel like our industry is a little bit behind the times when it comes to marketing. You see a lot of TV and a lot of radio, and those can definitely still be valuable. But honestly, there was not a lot of competition when it came to paid targeted social media campaigns. And content production was kind of my background too. So photography and video, being able to work with our team to capture that content in-house in a way that was easy for us to then use in a lot of different places. And then having just overall strategy and budgeting behind our marketing, and carving out a specific budget rather than just, does our business look good? Do we have extra money to spare at this moment? But really carving it out like we would carve out a budget for our vehicles or for our uniforms or anything else, and structuring it that way too.
Yeah, that's cool. Very early you touched on, being our team was kind of in place when you came in, but yeah, we feel super privileged to be, working with your company. Really, because not only is the company great, I mean, as the reviews, Google reviews are certainly a testament, but I mean, everybody in the family is too. So yeah, it
Yeah,
is
appreciate that.
you guys make it really easy to do great work for.
Thank you.
Uh, yeah, and I guess as far as like the industry as a whole, you mentioned that it's kind of that there's a lot of things that maybe for a lot of people or other companies are kind of stayed that but where do you see the pest control industry sort of heading in the future? Do you have any sort of like ideas or visibility based on all the things you see day to day?
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I would say there's been a transition over the last 5 to 10 years in society towards people being more conscious about the chemicals that they come in contact with, whether it's things that they eat or drink, whether it's the soaps and the shampoos they're using, the type of water they're drinking, things like that. And I think customers that are younger generations that, let's say if there's going to be first time homeowners in the near future, are more conscious about that, and are going to be more conscious about the chemicals that are around their children and their pets and things too. And so that's something that we try to stay cutting edge on, is using products that are as safe and as green as possible, but still effective against bugs. And still, people pay us to keep bugs out of their homes, so that's still our goal, but we want to do it as safely as we can. And I see the industry heading that way as well, to where it's more preventative and less just treating to treat. So focusing more on the outside of people's homes where they're not coming in contact with the chemicals as often, and just with the main goal being to keep bugs out of people's homes. Same with lawn care, being able to get lawns greener, thicker, healthier, but at the same time with products that are more natural. We've transitioned, with our termite treatments. It used to be you pump chemical around the homes and create a liquid barrier that the termites don't cross. And now it's a lot more eco-friendly, where there's individual stations with the bait that still attracts the termites. It still wipes out the colony, but you're not pumping chemical into the ground. It's all self-contained. And I see that as how it continues to go. Like I said, focusing on the outside, keeping bugs out of the home or out of the business, but with more inspections and more just figuring out what the problems are without just blanketing as much chemical.
Yeah, that's cool because as you mentioned, you got to balance efficacy, with trying to be as green as possible, and certainly I know that you guys have been pushing that way for a while. Obviously, I'm sure there, over time you'll probably get more and more, like people that are like looking for it. But if the ultimate goal is make sure that the bugs are gone, you got to do what's right for also achieving that goal while being just transparent with the customer. So
Right.
I'm sure it's a balancing act in a way.
And there are some kind of more unique things that are popping up. Like for instance, one is with rodent control. Now it's automated. It's basically tied to Bluetooth. So the stations have this sensor in them, and we will get an alert in this online portal if there's a hit on the station, like if there's rodent activity inside the station. And so when you're talking about a huge facility, that whether it's an airport or a big food manufacturing plant where there's hundreds of stations, rather than having to spend so much time and costing the customer so much money, for our time to go, we can simply check the stations as needed as we get the activity, rather than, okay, we have to check every single one, every single 100 stations, once a month.
That's brilliant. Oh my gosh, it sounds like such a simple kind of employment of that kind of technology. But yeah, you're right. If you have like a giant facility or something really big, yeah, you could spend hours walking around and just checking each one. But if you know where that's at, also that could lead you closer to where maybe the actual issue is occurring, as opposed to just guessing and checking.
Mm-hmm. And then, I mean, other technological advances too are just better communication, more automated notifications when we're coming or after we come, things like that, that most home services companies do. And, I feel like I said, our industry is a little bit behind the times, but we're catching up quickly because that's very important to homeowners, is to know when we're coming, what we're going to do, setting expectations and kind of just leading to overall satisfaction.
Definitely. Yeah, communication, relationship development is so
Mhm.
important. That's cool. I guess you talked a little bit already about, kind of the advancements in science and technology, within the field in general. I guess, are there anything else you feel like is on the horizon, whether it's actually individual, sort of science related things that may be upcoming as well. But I think you may have covered just about all the new things that have come up too.
Yeah, it's possible. I would say the manufacturers of the products that we use are always trying to come up with unique ways of delivering the product, whether it's whether it's more of an aerosol versus a liquid, but also targeting specific pests or changing the way that we treat. Like I said, the way we treat termites is much different than what we did, 15 years ago with liquid. I could see different ways of treating bed bugs, which to me seems like kind of a obscure way of doing it now, where the only kind of effective treatment method is extreme heat, which sounds unique, but there might be a more unique way of delivering that. But yeah, I would say, we're always, as a company, trying to stay on the cutting edge of what can we do to be as tech savvy as we can, and as helpful to our customers as we can.
That's great. You guys do have an entomologist on staff, which is very unique and definitely really, cool, that you have, that person with those kind of skills on your team. How does that change maybe the way that you approach, the things that you use? You think about the pests in general, you think about the environmental impact. How does having that sort of skill set change the nature of what you do?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so John Myers, who's been on our team for more than 20 years, he's an ACE certified entomologist. And for everyone that doesn't know, essentially, entomology is the study of insect behavior. And so he gets into the nitty gritty science of insect behavior, and he's kind of an expert on each individual insect, how they breed, how long they live, like what type of products they respond to, what time of year they come out and are active. And so that's very helpful to have someone that's that knowledgeable, because he's the one that trains all of our new team members. And so he's in charge of our training protocol, a written book that each of our new team members gets, but then he's also the main person that individually trains them all and tries to find scenarios for each individual situation, each individual pest. And so I would say, compared to other companies, we have a lot more chemicals at our technicians' disposal, because that way they have something for every different situation. I mean, there are certain pests that respond differently to different chemicals, and certain technicians are more confident in other ones. So we want to give them basically the tools they need to do the best job that they can. And I would say, John's knowledge translates to, like I said, the training when new team members start. We have ongoing meetings that are a little bit more seasonally focused. So like the summer pests are different than, the fall and winter pests, where he kind of hones in on what to expect, or if it's a certain situation, like if it's a commercial facility, what things to keep in mind on where we can treat, how to read a label. Essentially, he's just creates a level of knowledge within our team that comes through to the customer, that shows that our team really knows what they're talking about and we truly are the experts, which is kind of what they're paying us for. Anyone could go to Home Depot and get their own residual spray, but not everyone would know how to use it correctly, or if they had like an issue with ants or a unique infestation, would know what to do. And thanks to John's leadership, our team is very well prepared for any situation that could pop up.
That's really cool. Yeah, in terms of making you guys not only, super knowledgeable, but extremely, effective, no matter what sort of the case is. And I'm sure he has just a billion interesting factoids all the time, I bet.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I definitely admire, from kind of like just personal sort of ethos standpoint about, like, the changes and updates that Gunter has made to green the facility and the operations. And I mean, if you have a second to, like, maybe go through just some of the things. Obviously you already talked about the chemicals, but the facility in general would be super interesting. And then really, I think one big key is, like, everybody looks at it as an expense, as a line item, and I know that there's eventual payoff, but maybe how could you say for this investment, how it's maybe even already paid off for you?
Sure. Yeah. So I would say our industry gets kind of a bad rap for not being great for the environment. And I will say we have some companies in the industry that kind of are bad apples that leads to somewhat of the public perception of this. So an example would be like on Nextdoor or Facebook local community pages, you might get comments from homeowners talking about spraying for mosquitoes or overspraying, or doing harm, honestly, to things beyond just what we're there to do. And so we want to kind of flip that upside down and actually be a green company and actually make a difference with the environment. So we've put solar panels on our office and our garage. We have transitioned to an electric vehicle fleet. So right now we have 6 electric Tesla Model 3s as our service vehicles, and we're going to be adding 2 to 3 each year until our whole fleet has been transitioned to electric. And so those vehicles are charged in our garage that is solar powered. So essentially the solar energy is what's charging the vehicles. And then our operating system is paperless. We try to minimize our use of paper as well. And like you said, we try to have as many green treatment options as we can that are still effective. In terms of the investment and what that's looked like in terms of the payoff, so our energy bill in our garage where the vehicles are parked, that is now down to 0. So we still have a light bill in our office where we have more energy usage from lights and heaters and things like that, but in the garage it's down to 0. And so that's like a nice savings compared to what we had before. And our gas bill, our gasoline bill for our vehicles is down as well. So when you have 6 vehicles that are not using any gas, even despite the cost of the gas increases over the last 2 years or so, which have been noticeable, we've been able to see those savings in gasoline. And so that's definitely paid off. Our printing costs have gone down as well. And honestly, the long-term benefit is the biggest benefit. As more homeowners know about this, I feel like it's going to pay off as customers get more. They want to work with companies that are better for the environment and are eco-savvy and friendly. So it's a conversation starter. When we show up to a customer's house for the first time, if they're a new customer and they don't know about that, they're like, "What are you doing in a Tesla?" And it's kind of nice to be able to explain it and explain what we're doing, because most people react very positively to that.
Yeah, that's so cool. And this may be a little kind of granular, but I mean, like all the power you receive from solar is able to power all the Teslas, day in, day out for, I guess, the entire, mileage range that they need for the routes.
It is, yeah. Yeah, so our build, because there's not a lot of other power used in the garage, it's not heated or lights to the level of what we have in our office. So yeah, it's enough power to charge the Teslas and offset that whole energy bill.
That's so cool. Because I think about having a neighbor that has solar and they also have a car in the garage, but then I think of 6 cars and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's
Yeah.
like, yeah.
Well, a home, uses a lot more energy with the appliances and the lights and the furnace and things like that, but the garage is pretty basic. So, that's the main power drag, is those vehicles. And then some of them, for guys that have the Teslas that live farther away, they just take them home and then charge them at home. We have charging setups for them at home, so that they don't have to come back and forth to the office each day.
Oh, that's great. That's really cool. You mentioned overspraying and stuff, and it just, reminded me of, like, times, and I don't even know if they still do this, but fogging inside of neighborhoods. And I
Yeah.
know that, yeah, everybody got, a little freaked out about that, maybe even myself included, but is that even a thing anymore?
Like misting sprays for mosquitoes. I mean, yeah, that is a thing, because that's kind of the only way, because they're flying insects, to take care of them.
Hmm.
But it's very important with how you do that. And I think that's kind of what gives the industry a bad rap, is a lot of companies are not doing it correctly by the label. So you have to avoid flowering plants. You have to avoid pollinators, such as butterflies and bees and things like that, and focus just on the areas where the mosquitoes harbor. So yeah, it is still a thing. And I would say fogging inside people's homes for spiders used to be much bigger. Is like, oh, you have spiders, we're going to fog your whole house. And in terms of that being effective, and that being, I'm not going to say it wasn't safe, but I just don't think it's necessary to get the effect you're looking for to fog someone's whole house. So we'll do that very rarely if it's a very, very unique situation. But for the most part, is, yeah, the chemicals that go into the air are much less prevalent and much more targeted than they ever have been.
Yeah. Now that you mention that, like, I wonder, and hopefully this isn't too, off topic, but, like, of the spiders, I know sometimes, they're the quote unquote good bugs that eat the bad bugs. Like, is there thought in, the overall idea of pest control about kind of preserving them for that case? Or is it, I guess people don't want spiders in their house, especially if they're terrified. So,
Yeah,
yeah, I know
that's a tough conversation, because a lot of people that are going to hire us for pest control aren't picky about what bugs. They just don't want to see any bugs, and they think of them all as the same.
Mhm.
But maybe folks that are a little bit more knowledgeable, that understand, yeah, if you have spiders, then you're going to have fewer other pests inside your home. I mean, honestly, a lot of people just don't like spiders. They're just scared of them. Brown recluses are kind of big in Missouri and Kansas. They're common there. And although they can't do a lot of damage typically, like, they are poisonous spiders that people are scared of. Yeah, so there are different ways to treat for spiders than other pests, because of the way that they spin webs and they don't travel along the baseboards like other pests.
Mhm.
Uh, so yeah, I mean, some people don't like spiders, and we'll take care of them as well. And if they know, then we can kind of treat a little bit differently.
Yeah, it's interesting. I appreciate. And what's funny is, like, I have compassion for spiders because I know that they are helpful, but also I got a brown recluse bite at one point, so I'm like, "Ooh, I don't really want them in my house."
Exactly.
Yeah, but
Not that spider, just the safe ones.
yeah, exactly. The harmless ones, they're fine. As your staff has handled all type of situations, I know this might be kind of tough, but is there anything that you feel like is like a like a situation that you have ever seen that has ever been like, maybe out of control, or that has taken a long time to maybe tackle,
Mm.
that you're like, you guys had to visit, again and again and again?
Yeah. Well, one situation like that is, for bed bugs. So it's an apartment complex, and it's tricky with bed bugs because the way to treat for them is to heat the room to extreme heat. But sometimes bed bugs could go to, a neighboring unit. And so those, when you have bed bugs coming in from different sources and different, units of a big apartment complex, they can be tricky and take a long time to control, and seemingly, come back depending on, environmental factors, such as people are going to environments with bed bugs and then bringing them back home with them. So in terms of ongoingly, like there, that can be a case. I mean, one situation that pops up that is a funny story to remember is 2 summers ago. It was really hot, and termites are most active in the summer. And so one of our termite inspectors that's been with us for more than 20 years was in a crawl space under, basically in a pocket of someone's basement. And right outside the crawl space, probably 2 feet outside the crawl space, was this wooden flower bed, square flower bed, where there was a yellow jacket, nest essentially, with like hundreds and hundreds of yellow jackets. And so our inspector is finishing up in the crawl space, and he comes out and he gets stung. He didn't notice, and then one stung him. And then what happens is when one of them stings, it lets off a pheromone to where all the other ones think they're under attack. And so then they basically started coming after him, and he got stung a couple times, and then basically trapped himself down in the crawl space and was like, I'm not coming out of here. I need backup. And unfortunately, I was kind of the only person in the office at the time that could help all of our other technicians. We didn't have anyone in the exact area. So, had to kind of get the product that we needed, like a long distance kind of spray that you use for stinging insects, and went there to the house. And, they had calmed down a little bit. They were still kind of in height. They went back in hiding, like in the flower bed. So I tossed him a can of the spray. I had a can of it. And then we just start soaking down the flower bed to basically create a barrier so that he can actually make his way out without getting stung any longer. And it's just like, okay, the coast is clear. Let's go, hurry. And he just runs out. And then I could see, closer up, because it was dark in there, like he had a couple red stings on his body. So, that's maybe not one of the most fun days that he's ever had, but definitely kind of unique. Like, you never know what you're getting yourself into. And I was like, yeah, sorry, you were stuck with me as your backup. I wish we had an expert for you, but he was able to get out with not too much damage.
That's good. Yeah, I know. I was just thinking, I guess it could have been way worse depending on the amount of them there. But no, that sounds like, hey, you served as backup. It all, it's like the firefight. You got to have, your backup there. So,
and luckily there was the nice crawl space, and he thought quickly to just close that thing and just basically hide in there for 30 minutes or so.
I guess the homeowner wasn't home either.
It was a home that was being sold, and it was a termite inspection beforehand. So there was the real estate agent there who actually took a couple stings as well.
Ouch.
But they went to their car immediately to hide. So.
Oh man, wow. Yeah, I'm sure there's probably a whole episode we could end up doing on abandoned properties and bugs, but maybe
Yeah.
we'll save that. But that's
I'm sure each team member has a lot of unique kind of stories like that. Each year, honestly, you never know what you're getting into.
yeah, because you go into lots of people's homes, and obviously they all have different kind of conditions and issues.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess, the last question I have for you, is really, do you have any, things for, homeowners, is like, whether it be tips or, just general ideas to, if they have like, sort of issues like that arise?
For sure. So, I would say for any homeowner, it's important to be aware of termites. Like termites kind of are everywhere and can do damage to your home over a long period of time. But when you're kind of doing yard work around the outside of your home, look for mud runs along the foundation, mud tunnels, and essentially like the size of a pencil is about how wide they are. And just basically you'll just see like kind of strings of mud, and that's how termites basically go from the ground into the wood that they're trying to eat. So look out for those. If you have any questions, most companies will do an inspection for you at no charge. So I would recommend that. And I would say for rodents, look for signs of droppings. That's the most common sign. So little, brown pieces of poop, essentially, that you'll most commonly find in your kitchen cabinets, especially underneath the sink. And rodents can carry diseases and things like that. So I would look out for those. And then I would say, if you do have any of those, you can buy bait from the store, or, Gunter offers rodent control services where we'll kind of inspect the whole property and look for the hotspot areas with the rodent activity and put the bait out. And then in terms of general pests, I would just say that's kind of based on your tolerance. Some people don't mind some bugs in their homes, especially spiders. There are products that you can buy at the store, for preventative wise, like the products Home Depot and places, hardware stores sell, are fine. And they just don't last quite as long as the products that you're going to have, that a professional company could do. And then I would just say, yeah, if you have any questions, if you have like a unique situation pop up with a lot of ants or something like that, or stinging insects, give a professional company a call. I would say, look at the reviews, make sure it's a legitimate company. There's a lot of ones that aren't, but generally most issues that homeowners have can be solved in 1 or 2 visits by any legitimate company.
Cool. I know you guys are based in KC, but hopefully at some time there's a St. Louis expansion. Because we know you, you're really helpful when I had an issue with ants. And so that was great. That was great to know somebody in that situation. But maybe one day there's a St. Louis office in the future.
Yeah, I hope so. We'll see.
Yeah. Well, that's it. That's all I got, in terms of questions. And I had to say, I really appreciate you taking the time to, go through all that stuff and share, not only your experiences, but industry knowledge and stuff. It's been really cool. So yeah, definitely thank you. Thank you for being on Mix and Matchbox.
Yeah, this was fun, Brent. Thanks for having me. It was
Absolutely.
great.
Absolutely. Well, this has been another episode of Mix and Matchbox. We will be back soon again with more content. Please like and subscribe.